Hello, so this is the second video for naming compounds. The previous video we talked about naming ionic compounds. Here we're going to discuss covalent compounds. So just a quick review. Covalent compounds, these form between nonmetals. So we're talking about atoms on the left side of the periodic table. So chlorine, fluorine, all the halogens, your nitrogen family, your oxygen family, carbon family, all those nonmetals. Covalent bonds form from sharing electrons rather than transferring them to the other atom. So we're sharing them. We're saying, okay, you need one, I'll share my one with you. We're not transferring, we are sharing them. They are not held together by that difference in charge, okay? They are just shared together. Resulting bond is known as a covalent bond. The element farthest to the left or lower on the periodic table is generally written first. Subscripts are replaced by numerical prefixes in the name. So here is our rule for naming covalent compounds. So if we have two elements, right, we're going to have a prefix, which that prefix is the number of atoms that you have at that first element. Then you have another prefix, and that other prefix is the number of atoms you have of the second element. Last thing, on the second element, its suffix gets changed to "ide." Super important there. So, for example, here we have CO2. We call CO2 carbon dioxide. Okay? Now, there's only one carbon atom here. But we still just call it carbon. We don't call it monocarbon. So that's a rule that if the first atom is only one, then you just can call it by its elemental name, carbon. Di, representing that we have two oxygen atoms. So carbon dioxide. Here's another example. Two nitrogens with one oxygen. This is called dinitrogen for two nitrogens, and then oxide. Notice instead of oxygen, we're changing that to oxide, so there's that suffix coming in. Here's another one, 2 phosphorus with 5 sulfurs. So we're changing the prefix here to diphosphorus. The prefix for 5 is penta, and instead of sulfur, we're changing that to sulfide. So diphosphorus pentasulfide is how you say that. So crazy long name, definitely one to consider for your firstborn child if you can't think of a good name for them. Diphosphorus pentasulfide. Here's another one, silicon. One atom of silicon, 4 atoms of chlorine. This just becomes silicon tetrachloride. Again, if the first atom, if there's only one of the first atom, we just keep it by its elemental name, silicon tetrachloride. Now here's another important rule. For compounds where there are two vowels that occur together, okay, so like this one where it's 5 oxygens. So if the vowels come together, we're going to drop the vowel on the prefix, okay, and just keep it as oxide. So this is dinitrogen pentoxide. So we drop that A there. Dinitrogen pentoxide. All right, so you may be thinking, like, there's no way that I can remember all of these prefixes, and I don't even know where she's getting these prefixes. These are just prefixes that were created by, the people that came up with these rules. Over time, we've decided on that these are the prefixes for the first 10. I am not going to require you to make any names for compounds, for covalent compounds that are more than 10, but you do need to know these. So you need to know the prefix for 1 is mono, 2 is di, 3 is tri, 4 is tetra, 5 penta, 6 is hexa, 7 is hepta, 8 is octa, 9 is nona, 10 is deca. And these are pretty simple. I think they're pretty easy to memorize. I think the more that you do them, the easier they are to memorize. And I'm sure that some of you guys will memorize them anyways. It would be good to have, on a test or quiz. So think about committing those to memory. All right, so here are some examples. So determine names and formulas for binary covalent compounds. All right, so the examples. What is the formula for carbon disulfide? So one thing I want to talk about before we dive into this, you need to be able to do both of these. Determine the name, Okay, so if I give you the formula, you need to be able to have the name. If I give you the formula, you need to be, or if I give you the name, you need to come up with the formula. Okay, so this one I have the name, I need to come up with the formula. Here's the solution. So carbon is just written by itself. There's no prefix here, so we know that there just must be one carbon. Di is the prefix here, so that means there must be two. And sulfide, okay, sulfur must be our other atoms. So this is just CS2 when you write that formula. Notice we didn't look at charges, we didn't have to balance anything, we just looked at its name and came up with its formula CS2. Okay, here's the opposite. What is the name for PCl5? So here we don't have the name, but we have the formula. We're trying to get the name. So in order to do this one, we need to look at our numbers here. So phosphorus, there's not a 1 here, but we know that there's just one phosphorus atom. Then we have 5 chlorine atoms. So the rule, if the first one is just one atom by itself, we just keep it as phosphorus. The 5 next to chlorine, the prefix for 5 we know is penta from our chart. So the way we say this is phosphorus pentachloride. That is it. Those are all of my notes on naming. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, good luck.